Hi everyone, thank you for logging on and watching this video. My name is Patrick Cerria. I am a New Jersey-based music researcher and music strategy designer. I actually do not prefer to just call myself a music teacher because I believe that music in the context of education is a lot more than that. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. The title of my presentation is Changing the Role of Music in Education, but I also like to think of it as expanding the role of music in school. Now, what do I mean by that? A couple of things. I'm going to answer that question with a couple of questions. The first one is, are you aware of the fact that in the United States right now, according to the National Center for Education Statistics, 15% of American public school age children require in-school special education services. That means that roughly 7.4 million kids go to school every day and require some special education service, whether that's a school-provided therapy, a self-contained class, an inclusion class, a one-to-one aide or paraprofessional. 7.4 million kids go to school every day and need those types of services. In addition to that, did you know that according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, mental health diagnoses amongst American children ages 2 to 17 put out the following data points. The rate of ADHD diagnosis is 9.8%, roughly 6 million kids in that age bracket, 2 to 17 years. The rate of anxiety diagnosis is 9.4%, which is about 5.8 million kids in that age group. The rate of behavioral or self-control classifications is 8.9%, and that's roughly 5.5 million kids. And then the rate of depression diagnosis is 4.4%, which is about 2.7 million kids. So as you can see, literally millions of children are walking into school every day with a classification or diagnosis that is going to, in some way, affect how and what they learn. By the way, I also want to tell you those data points that I just put out from the CDC, those numbers are pre-pandemic. So the rates of ADHD, anxiety, behavioral classifications, depression, the next batch of data points to come out, we all know they're going to be higher than that. But again, we're talking about millions of kids walking into school every day, like I said, with a classification or diagnosis that in some way is going to hinder how they learn. In addition, those classifications and diagnoses are also going to affect and impact how teachers teach and what they teach. And I want to say that I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it as a fact. Kids coming in with diagnoses specific to things like ADHD and a behavioral classification are going to impact the way teachers teach specifically. But the next question I do want to ask you is, if you are a music educator, or if you work in a school, or if you are a supervisor of instruction, whatever your role is, I have some questions for you. Are your music teachers available to in-school therapists like occupational and speech to assist in their protocols? Are your music teachers available to behaviorally classified students to assist in self-regulation protocols? Are your music teachers conducting social and emotional learning classes on their own that involve movement, social interaction, physical starts and stops, those types of things? And lastly, are your music teachers available to all classroom teachers to implement and introduce creative music-based classroom management strategies? Now, if you answered no to these questions, it's okay. I know why. And that is because of what I like to call the four corners of music education. We have defined music education into four very distinct corners. And those four corners are band, chorus, orchestra, general music class. Again, band, chorus, orchestra, general music class. Depending on where you teach or where your kids go to school or what district you work in, your music education could be all four of those corners. Some districts only have one of those corners. Some districts have two. Regardless of what it is, we see it as very specific to being those four things. And for me, one of the more depressing things is music teachers themselves only define themselves as a band teacher, a chorus director, an orchestra director, a general music teacher, or maybe two of those things. Well, I think it's time to change that. And I say this based on the work that I've done and continue to do. I'm just going to tell you about myself very briefly. By the way, all of this information is available in a Google Doc that you'll be able to access and follow along with me. But I have been teaching music for over 20 years, and my 20 years of experience have shown me that music is the most underused resource in all of education. And I say that as somebody who has had the pleasure of working with a wide array of student populations who possess amazing abilities and amazing disabilities as well. I currently teach in a county school district. It's a public county school district. And we provide special and alternative education services. And I teach in three of the district schools, excuse me. One is a self-contained school for children on the autism spectrum. The second is a school for students with behavioral and or emotional classifications classified as at risk. So they come to school out of, by and large, inner city communities. We have students who come out of a group foster home, students who come from a residential mental health facility, excuse me. And then the third school I teach at is a school for physically and or developmentally disabled students. I also am a proud Dalcroze Eurythmics teacher. I earned my Dalcroze Eurythmics certification in 2007 from the Juilliard School in New York City. And I have been using Dalcroze-based lessons and interventions for the last 14 years. I'm in the next phase of my Dalcroze studies at Carnegie Mellon University Marta Sanchez Dalcroze Training Center in Pittsburgh. And through that work, I have also done a lot of research, academic research on the uses of eurythmics. I presented an academic study this past summer at a international conference on the uses of eurythmics-based interventions on autistic children with speech delays. And I'm very happy to say that that is becoming a larger study with a fellow research colleague of mine at University of Southern California. We're going to begin that study hopefully in September of 2024. But again, my inspiration for all of the things that I do comes from working with the types of kids that I do and seeing how music affects them. I have students who are nonverbal on the autism spectrum who, when they come to music class, do things verbally that they do not do with their speech therapist. I have developmentally disabled students who have things like low muscle tone or a lack of body awareness, and they come to music class and they are able to bend their knees and lift their arms up in the air, or isolate specific body parts like their shoulders and move them to the rhythm of the music. And oftentimes the occupational and speech therapists come in and watch music class because they see the children or students do things that they don't do in their therapies. And again, the research that I'm about to mention will be in the documents that you can access. Tons of academic scholarship and research now coming out showing how music affects us, not just physiologically, but neurologically, as well as socially and emotionally. One study in particularly came out of University of Connecticut, and it essentially said that all school-provided speech therapies for autistic children should include music interventions. All school-provided speech therapies for autistic children should include music-based interventions. Again, this is not a crazy concept or idea. There is now academic scholarship backing up these things that should make young music educators and veteran music educators want to expand the rules within the school. My job, as I see it, is to make sure that superintendents, supervisors of instruction, principals, etc., see how they can expand their music budget instead of cutting it. Because I believe it is imperative. I think that, again, music is the most underused resource. If you were to look at that box that I talked about before, band, chorus, orchestra, general music class, there's a lot of space in that box where we can fill it with other applications. We can do movement-based strategies with behaviorally challenged kids. We can do movement-based strategies with students who require occupational therapy. We can use music and its dynamic qualities to help students with speech delays or speech-related diagnoses. We can use music to help classroom teachers implement more creative classroom management strategies. If we take a step back and look at the dynamic attributes of music outside of their music qualities, what are they? They're kinesthetic, right? They start and stop. So you can take a room full of, again, behaviorally classified kids or kids with ADHD. I'm isolating those two things to make a point specific to self-regulation. Students who lack self-regulation tend to have an ADHD or a behavioral classification. Using music in a simple form, just by stopping and starting. I want you to stand in this circle on the floor, and you're going to walk in the circle with the beat of the music. And when the music stops, you have to tap your legs to the beat of the music. And then when the music starts again, you have to walk in the circle. So they're being asked to do two different things, but they're also listening to the music. They're also watching each other. They're cueing off of each other. They're making eye contact. So when they hear a little piece, remember, you're going to march, and when I stop, tap your legs. Tricks and things where they're anticipating the phrase to come in after those 4 beats or those 8 beats, and it goes longer. So it's going to improve their listening. It's going to make them more aware. It's going to make them more aware of the room. It's going to make them watch each other. It's going to make them listen to you as a teacher. And again, this is all related to self-regulation. Self-regulation, the ability to control those impulses, the ability to control your listening, the ability to control your emotions. That music is very happy. You can do it in a minor key to slow it down. Whatever the case may be, using music in that capacity. There should be a music teacher in the building who can go down to the behavioral therapist's room and do something like that. Imagine that same game in the context of a 4th grade class who was having trouble with classroom management, who's having trouble with collective behavior. Imagine doing a game like that for that teacher. You go in there first thing in the morning and you do that game. They do a great job with it. You compliment them. Look at what you're capable of. Look what you can do. If you can do it to the music, you can do it with your teacher. I'm going to come back in and check on you later and see how you're doing. That's music being used in a very non-traditional way. It's you designing a strategy to go in and assist other teachers in their work. Again, I like to tell young music educators when I do some lecturing at colleges and universities, do not think of yourself as a music teacher. You are a designer. You are coming up with ideas and creative ways to use this amazing toolbox called music that you have to not just teach music, but to benefit the entire school, benefit classroom teachers, benefit therapists, benefit the mood of the building. That's how you have to think of yourself. The other thing too that I like to talk about is music and body movements. So many kids coming in with physical and or developmental disabilities. Simple exercises to just get them to use their bodies. Can you raise your arms up over your head slowly? Can you wiggle your fingers? Now bring your arms down. Can you bring your arms up fast? Now down. Now you have to listen. You're either going to bring them up slow or fast. You must listen to the music. Things like that. So you're using those kinesthetic powers of music to get them to move their bodies and making them more aware. I play that game too sometimes, and I have the children close their eyes. So they're really just using their ears. And it's fascinating to watch because when I play those games with them and ask them to close their eyes, they all have big smiles on their faces. So it's very cool, it's very exciting. But again, it's taking music out of the context of just those four corners, right? Now you're using music in a way that is getting kids to just move their bodies in a different way and feel their bodies in different ways. Another fun game that I like to play, I've done this when I've gone into a typical classroom, like a 4th or 5th grade class who was having classroom management struggles, and I play this game. It's just to get them to listen and focus. I ask them to put their fingers on their nose. They're going to put their fingers on their nose, and when you hear this sound, you're going to switch to your stomach. Okay? So fingers on your nose. And I do that test to see who knew to go back to their nose when they heard it, right? And a magic thing happens when I do that. When I do it the first time, they go to their stomach. When I do it again, maybe one student will go to their nose, and the other kids who didn't do it will suddenly do it. So now they're watching each other, right? But they're also listening to me. I explain the game, but I am getting them to listen to me and follow me through my subject. I'm not being so rigid with my verbal directions. I'm using the game to help them discover how it's going to work. I'm using the music. So then I say, okay, now we're going to add another layer to it. There's going to be other sounds, but you can't move till you hear the change sound. And I just start playing a scale. And I go, something like... Then I trick them. I go like this. So I'm really making them listen, and they're very focused, right? They're not only listening to me, they're watching each other, they're standing still. It allows me to see who can stand still, who can't. It allows me to see who might be a little shy. It allows me to get what I call kind of a diagnostic check of the room, right? Remember all those statistics that I said before. Even if you don't want to teach a student or have a student with a diagnosis or classification, odds are that you're going to have them in your class. How are you going to find out what their abilities are, what their capabilities are? Playing a game that involves listening and movement. Taking music out of the four corners and putting it in the context of getting a check on your class, or using that game to help a teacher get a check on their class. Just a different way of approaching something, but using music itself. If you noticed, I was using the notes in a major scale, right? And I'm also using an interval. So it's also an early ear training exercise. So while it's kind of an outside the box idea in terms of its application, you're still using a true component or a true element of music education, in that you're teaching them to listen to that phrase, listen to that pattern of sounds, that scale, and that interval, right? Except they're standing up, they're focused. When I play that game, as I'm doing that, I'll sometimes see some movement because they're feeling the rhythm as well. So that's just another application that you can do. The challenge, by the way, you're going to watch this video and look at the notes that I've provided. I'm going to ask that you come up with 4 games on your own. You have to come up with 4 strategies on your own that you can take to your class or to your school or to your lessons or whatever the case may be, that use music in a very non-traditional way that can help you. If you have students with a classification or diagnosis, think about how you can use this amazing ability that you have, this tool to help you teach those kids, to help you get through to them. You know, I have a couple of students with speech delays, and one of the things that I do is I don't just have them sing, but I have them move and sing. And some of them can't verbalize, but they can make sounds, so they can say ha or ba, or some of them can go ch. But what I'll do is, and they can understand what I'm saying to them, I'll play the same game I was doing before, where when I stop, you tap your knees. But you're going to bend your knees, and when I stop, you have to say ba. So it's the same idea. So they're listening to the music, right? They're keyed into the rhythm of it, and that rhythmic pulse is actually a great tool to help them get that speech pattern down and feel how that sound is going to come out of their mouth. I've had students who had no speech at all come into music and begin to make those sounds, and the speech therapists are just blown away. Because not only does it show that they possess the ability to do it, but it's an aha moment for the child, but also for the speech therapist. Now they kind of have a jumping off point where they can continue that therapy. Another thing that I do is, and again, this document will be in the folder for you to see, is I'll put dots on a piece of paper. I have some kids who have a speech delay and are also in a wheelchair. They may not be able to stand up and bend their knees or move their shoulders while they make the ba sound, but they can point to the dots, and it'll be an arrangement of dots, enough that I know, so when I stop, they're now in it too. And so they can move their arm and move in their wheelchair and also make that sound with my rhythm and my stop and start. So we're not leaving them out of the game. They're involved in it too. That's the other thing. You may have to find how different students move and how they're going to be able to interact with you, right? If you do have a nonverbal student who has no speech at all, one of the other things that I do is I use pictures. Just yesterday I was doing the song, I Know an Old Lady Who Swallowed a Fly, and I have nonverbal students in the class, but I have a fly and a spider, and so when we sing the song, I know an old lady who swallowed up, they point. It's just getting them involved in those different ways. Again, you're not just a music teacher, you are a designer. You have to come up with ways and strategies that are going to involve all the kids in your class, or inspire and involve all the kids in those other classes. If the 4th grade or 5th grade teacher needs your help with self-regulation, you have to begin to see yourself in these capacities. Administrators or superintendents or supervisors of instruction listening, you need to think of your music educators in this capacity. They are an extraordinary resource within your building. All of those games and protocols that I was just showing you are just the beginning. Imagine all the ideas that you have in your own head that you can come up with using this amazing toolbox. And if you don't play the piano, maybe it's a drum. Maybe it's just clapping your hands. Whatever the case may be, you are a designer. You are not just a teacher. You can come up with these ideas. We've been given an amazing gift. We need to share it in a multitude of ways. Remember, it's not just the 4 corners. It's that big space in there too. We have to occupy it with as many variations and interventions and strategies and ideas as we can, because remember those data points that I shared with you. 7.4 million kids, special education services, millions of kids with mental health or neurological based diagnoses. Another great self-regulation game that I like to play, if you are not a pianist, this is good, right? Music possesses amazing qualities in terms of size and shape and form, right? Like I showed you before, you can go up slow or down fast. You can also shake your body this way, right? When I play the music, you're going to shake your body, but when I stop, you're going to stop. Is everybody ready? Are you ready? Are you sure you're ready? Because when the music comes on, you're going to shake your body. But when I stop, you have to stop. So you got to listen and you got to focus. Are you ready? You think you can do it? Okay. When the music starts, you're going to shake. When it stops, you got to stop too. Okay, here we go. That's not virtuosity by any stretch of the imagination, but I've played that game with hundreds of classes and the kids fall over laughing. They love it, especially when there's a long pause in between. They're literally like, they're waiting and anticipating. But again, it's a great way for them to use their bodies. They're listening, they're moving. It's a full sensory motor game, but it's all self-regulation, right? And there's also a beautiful social and emotional component to it. They're all working and moving together, and they're listening together, you know? That's a really fun game to play. Another game that I like to play is a variation on what I showed you before with the nose to the stomach, except that you have to be a statue. You're going to become a statue, a beautiful statue of some kind. I don't care what kind. Ready? this sound, you're going to change into a different statue. Now, mind you, the kids are standing still. And they change into a different statue. And then you go around the room and you say, what are you? What kind of a statue are you? Who are you supposed to be? When you hear the sound, you're going to change into an angry statue. Now when you hear the sound, you're going to change into a beautiful statue. Right? Who has a different idea as to what kind of a statue we can be? Ask the kids to begin helping you. When you go around and ask them what kind of a statue they are, you get great input. What are you supposed to be? You know, I'm my dog. I'm my cat. But it's cool. It gives them the chance to come up with ideas and interact with each other. They're all excited to hear what each other are. They're seeing who's looking at them, seeing who's watching them. These are all social games, social and emotional games. Another game that I like to play is using your legs to march, but march quietly and loud. So I want you to show me big marches. Now, show me little marches. Right? Now you gotta listen. It's either gonna be a big march or a little march, but you gotta listen. You can't just do it, you have to listen. They're adjusting their bodies, feeling their weight. A great game to bring to occupational therapists, a great game to use with occupational therapists, a great game to use in gym class. Which brings me to my final point. Why doesn't the music teacher work with the gym teacher? Why doesn't the music teacher work with the math teacher? They can, right? Pythagoras is the father of music theory. Why doesn't the music teacher work with the biology teacher? Why do these are all things that we really need to think about, and I'm serious when I ask you these questions. Music is everything. Music is science. Music is math. Music is life. Music is distance. Music is time, it's space, it's energy. We have this incredible art form at our disposal. We can use it in a multitude of ways. And so I'm just going to say to you one more time, don't think of yourself as just that one corner or two corners or whatever it is. Think of yourself as that designer. Think of yourself as that strategist. Think of yourself as the dynamic, creative, highly creative individual, that you are, and go into school fully aware of the good and the services and the tools that you can bring. I think it's time for us to begin to shift in that direction, because the world is changing around us in extraordinary ways. Everybody's talking about the onset of AI. How are we going to do it? How are we going to use it? Is it going to replace jobs? Is it going to do all of those kind of panicky things? Well, we have a lot to teach our kids. We have a lot to educate them on. But think of those data points that I shared with you. How are we going to teach them all of those things if beforehand, when they come into the room, they have an ADHD diagnosis or a behavioral classification or anxiety or depression or need a special education service? We are worried about teaching kids about AI and STEM and those other things. Well, wait a minute. First, we have to teach them about themselves. First, we have to teach them how to interact with each other. First, we have to make sure that they know how to interact and form a healthy class dynamic. First, we have to make sure they're aware of their creative capacities. First, we have to make sure that they can express themselves socially and emotionally. Music can do all of those things. And so we need to view it in that capacity. We have to start to convince school districts and superintendents the school budget should not be cut. The school budget should be expanded. Imagine in a school district when budget cuts come up, we all know who the first people are to start panicking. But imagine if that mindset began to change and boards of education said, well, wait a minute, we can't get rid of the music teachers. They're doing all of these things. They're not just doing one of the four or four of the four, they're also filling that box. That's the way we have to begin to think of ourselves. I hope that I was able to help you today. I hope that I was able to provide you with a new look and a new perspective. Again, my name is Patrick Cerria, and I'm so happy that you logged on. If you have any other questions for me, I'm going to provide my contact information for you. You will have that. I'll also tell you that I run a nonprofit called Education Flow, where we are wholly dedicated to getting funding for further research and publishing. We also do staff development workshops as a way to fund all of our work. We've gone to education conferences. And I'm proud to say I also wrote a book. If you wanted to read my book, I'll provide the information as well. My book is called Finding the Flow, How Dalcroze Eurythmics and a New Approach to Music Education Can Improve Public Schools. That book, I'm proud to say, is on the syllabus for a music education graduate course at the University of Southern California's Thornton School of Music. And that's it. Thanks so much.